Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Sincerely Self Podcast. I'm very excited for our guest today. She is a voice coach, an author, speaker, and also a performer. She's just the best. Barbara Mcafee is joining us today. Barbara, thank you so much for sitting down with me today and diving into all things voice and how it pertains to our life. But before we dive into the conversation, for our audience that may not be familiar with you, tell us a little bit about your journey and what kind of led you to where you are now.
Well, it's been a long and winding road, and thank you for welcoming me here, by the way. I'm really happy to be in conversation with you. I'm looking forward to seeing what we discover together.
Yes.
I am one of those people who's a wounded healer. So I came to work with the voice through healing my own voice from lots of trauma, and I've had two major surgeries in my life until very recently. I had a broken wrist that got repaired, but before that, I had my tonsils out, and then I started singing in public as a soloist for the first time in my 20s, and then in my 30s, I had half my thyroid taken out. So I have a scar. Feels like my warrior scar. And so the gift and the wound have been dancing together as they are for most of us. So I just went on a big journey of healing, a lot of stage fright. I thought my voice ended around here when I was, a younger woman. And in a workshop with some of my primary teachers, I made sound, I don't know if you can hear this, almost to the top of my
Yeah.
piano. And it exploded my mind, exploded the story I'd been living inside, and I had to live in a bigger story. And every time I moved further outside of my vocal story and found more expression, I had to change my assumptions about who I was, and I became more and more alive and joyful. So my voice and my sense of self have been in a beautiful dance my most of my adult life now. I'm so grateful.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love how you said I had to change the assumptions I had about myself because I feel like when you're kind of coming into alignment with yourself and with what brings you the most happiness, it is a lot of kind of adjusting the way that you view yourself because we have so many limiting beliefs around what we're capable of, what we would be able to do, and we kind of have to let those go and be like, okay, I'm going to show myself what I'm able to do, and we end up being kind of surprised sometimes of what we're capable of.
It's true. And one of the sort of the secret sauce of the work I did with these teachers from the Roy Hart Center in the south of France, it also is in my work, is getting outside who you think you are. So the reason I could make those sounds is that I wasn't Barbara at the time. I was a bird. I was a really big bird screaming out of the sky. And I use a lot of characters and archetypes in my work because I think they're really powerful. I mean, these energies are, I believe, around looking for jobs, put me to work doing something. But inside your own story, you might not be able to make a particular sound. But if you are pretending to be a cave person, or a witch, or a fairy, you'll be able to make a lot more sounds and then kind of fool yourself in growing into something larger than you thought you were.
Yeah, almost embodying these characters to
Yes.
be able to bring that kind of out of yourself. I love that.
Yes, I've done a lot of growing in my life. I did a lot of good therapy, and I did a lot of yoga. I've done a lot of practices. What's been astonishing to me about the voice in this way that I work with it is how fun it is. Yes, it is also terrifying, but it's really fun to be foolish while you're healing and play and get fully embodied and get your imagination involved. And it's not only more fun, but it's also more memorable than doing something theoretical.
Oh yeah, 1000%. Something that I talk about a lot on the podcast actually is embodying your inner child. And I feel
Yeah,
like that is such a good example of that. And just, yeah, having like the little whimsical side of life in what you're doing, because it really does make it more fun and it makes it more carefree than something that feels like you have to be doing it.
exactly. Exactly.
So thank you for sharing your story with us, Barbara. And I think it is so beautiful how you said that the wound and what you do now kind of dance together. And that is such a powerful message because for so many of us, I'm sure there's so many that are kind of resonating with what you said. Our talents a lot of the time are connected in some way to either maybe a physical wound or an inner wound, even sometimes an emotional wound of something that is very important in our life. And so the way that you were able to see, like, no, I can use maybe that pain and that turmoil that I went through as almost a motivator in what I'm doing now.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I often say I paid the tuition, I might as well get the education. You know, the tuition is the
Yeah.
pain and the struggle. And I'm like, well, it's okay to, because I learned something. If it's just senseless struggle, senseless pain, and I don't learn it, what I'm supposed to learn, it'll come back again. I think the soul is very faithful. It's like, okay, honey, you didn't get it this time. So we're going to cue it up for you one more time and see if you'll receive the education we have in mind for you. So I think I'm old enough now that I can recognize when something is coming my way that I could actually learn from instead of making it a big sad story.
Yeah, and that's beautiful too, being able to say, you know what, I learned something from it. I gained something from this experience, even if it's not, what I thought going into it. And that is really the best mindset I feel like to have through life. And that's how you keep going, is knowing like I'm following my soul. Like my soul
Yeah,
knows what I'm supposed to be doing. I just gotta trust it. I just gotta follow along.
yeah, it's true.
So for our audience, maybe that struggle a little bit with diving into and being able to embrace themselves and embrace trying new things that they may be interested in, what would you say? What is your best advice for them to be able to start uncovering these parts of themselves?
Well, I made this tool that I want to just quickly share because I think it's the secret sauce. This is why I'm doing these podcasts. I've written 2 books. This is why I'm training people in my work because I think I stumbled onto something that is both practical in everyday use and also transformational, and you can kind of plug in anywhere you want. So it's called the 5 elements framework, and it splits the voice into 5 distinct sounds using the elements of earth, fire, water, metal, and air. And as you can hear, each one has a different quality. I'm exaggerating them. And then I just invite people outside of their kind of usual way of expressing themselves. Most of us have 1 or 2 dominant elements. Mine are fire and earth. You might be able to hear it. I'm kind of got a deep voice, but there's a lot of energy in it. And some of us are like up here in the air and we're like more dreamy. Our voice generally expresses our gifts. It tells maybe some clues about who we are. So each of the voices has some correlation, like earth is good for getting grounded and calm and projecting authority. And fire is great for passion and taking up space. Water is great for saying anything your heart has to say. I think this is a lot where you live, Lexi, which makes
Yeah.
perfect sense given what you're doing. You are definitely a healer, I can already tell. Metal is about clarity and mostly getting loud without strain. It's like very, like if you're outside or if you're with somebody who needs a hearing aid, this is your voice. Or in a crowded place. Um, Sometimes the voice that's great for one thing is terrible for another, and metal is great for being loud. And then
Mhm.
air is great for expressing dreams and opening up the imagination and telling stories and things like that. So, my invitation to people is to play with their voice. Children's books are a great way to go about doing that um, because they have all these archetypes and characters in them. So I do think that's, and singing, of course, making a playlist of your favorite songs, because that's just like stretching your voice out, especially if you get a variety of people, different kinds of voices. So
Yeah, I think that's so powerful. I feel like people talk about, like singing in the shower and things like that, but it really is such a healing thing actually to be able to just express yourself to something that you love and something that feels very you. And like you were saying, I think it is such a good way to be able to kind of tap in to that expressive, creative side of yourself to be able to get that out. And it is so cool your framework, how there are different like not only voice types, which were so beautiful to see you be able to represent those, but almost like personalities and expressive types for individuals. And I'm sure everybody had one that they're resonating with at some point in time. But it's cool that we can all embody them at some point when needed and be able to help ourselves in those situations.
Yes. And the idea is that it's kind of like a yoga practice. You know, you're going all over your voice, like the full range of motion, like yoga takes you through a full range of motion with awareness as a practice. It's a very similar idea, only it's just using your voice to do that and your body too, because it's the same thing. But the idea is that if you have something, we think so much about what am I going to say and very little about how am I going to say it. So if the tone and the words are at odds, people are going to believe the tone. So the kind of obvious example would be, I'm sorry. It's like, well, the words are saying
Yeah.
one thing, but what I'm really believing is what's under the words. And so a lot of times if we're just trapped in one or two little parts of our voice, we may not be able to connect with people more, as effectively as we would like. And we won't be able to connect with our full selves either, because you cannot change your voice without your life coming along for the ride. So if you get more airy, that was the one I hated. I did not like air. It is nothing to do with me. I'm 6'2". I'm Midwestern. I'm smart. It just was, there's no, I was like, oh, I'm not that kind of girl. And then
Uh-huh.
indeed, there was a lot of healing in the air. So the ones that you like the least often have the greatest gifts for you. So the idea is to become a more expressed person, more flexible communicator, but also you get to come from a place of wholeness, which is a wonderful feeling.
Oh, yeah. And it kind of goes along with it's not about what you say, it's about how you say it. And I think in today's society, especially where we are talking so much with texting and, not using our voices as much, people are forgetting that tone is so important. And they're forgetting how to, change their tone depending on the situation that they're in as much as we used to be able to. And so I think now more than ever, it's so important for us to recognize, okay, how am I saying what I'm trying to say? Because if I'm saying it like your example, they're not going to take it sincere. It's not going to come off the way that I'm meaning. So it's so important to be able to have that whole version so you're able to express yourself in the way that you want to.
Exactly. Exactly. And nothing much happens in this world without some connection being made between people. And
Hmm.
so there's a lot riding on that. I mean, basically everything that we do, every relationship, this podcast probably came as a result of conversations with other people, right? And every
Yeah, yeah.
family, every business, everything. It just is so essential. And this is why I wrote 2 books and I'm doing podcasts, is I feel like voice is so under recognized as a crucial part of every part of our lives. And I think maybe we notice it if we have laryngitis. Like, you know what I mean? That
Yeah.
feeling of like, oh my gosh, I'm not myself, or I don't
Hmm.
recognize myself, or when we have a cold, or we don't quite feel like, who is this person I'm I'm hearing? So it does feel like there's so much to be uh, gained from paying even a little bit of attention to really filling up our voice and playing with the real full range of options that we have.
Yeah, we genuinely do forget. I feel like, kind of like what you're saying, a lot of the time we get so used to just having this thing when we're sick or if it's off in some way at all, we realize, oh, like this is a necessity and this is, a gift that I have. And we don't appreciate it until we don't have it for a second there. And
Yeah.
so for individuals who are maybe working on adjusting their tone or being able to tap into how they can become more aware of it, where would you lead them to and what advice would you give them?
Well, a really quick and easy thing to do would be you could go to my website, barbaramcafee.com. I made a bunch of recordings of exercises for my new book is Vocal Intelligence, and it started as an audiobook, which I love because it's
Mhm.
got on over an hour of my music in it, and it's a romp. But my publisher wanted to also have it be a paperback, so I had to have all that located somewhere, and they're all up at my website. So if people want to just like take their voice out for a spin and try some of these wild sounds and try the framework with no cost, no risk at all, that's a really great way to sort of see what parts of my voice are awake, what parts are a little offline. And some people have access to a sound, but it's really uncomfortable. Like a lot of people feel like when they get into their fire, they just are like afraid. I used to have people say, "Oh my gosh, people are going to call the police." It's like, is it really that illegal to be exuberant and powerful and joyful and loud? I guess so.
Yeah.
So that's a really easy access to just start playing in the realm of voice and seeing seeing what's going on with that. And then once you get that in your own voice, once you've started exploring that more, it changes also the way you listen. So when you're hearing someone, you're not just listening to the words they're saying, you're also listening kind of to the song underneath the words. And you might ask smarter questions. So the person who's sounding kind of a little dull, you might say, "Oh, are you the person who stays calm in an emergency?" And almost every single time, they kind of get this little like twinkle in their eye and they're like, "Why, yes, I do."
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's just another way to like fully receive someone else in a in much fuller way.
Yes, absolutely. And conversation and our ability to be able to, communicate vocally with other individuals is what is our one of our cores of life. I believe,
Yes,
it's
yes,
in job, it's in home, it's in every single aspect of everywhere you go. And so the more skills you learn in that field, the farther you're going to be able to go and the more in tune you're going to be able to be in every conversation you have.
that's right.
So, first step, everyone, is definitely go over to Barbara's website, 1000%. That's going to be the first place you want to go and check it out. Also, her books. I think it's beautiful that you have your music in the audio version of your book. That is so much fun. So, make sure you guys go and listen to that. But the last question I have for you, Barbara, is if you could give advice to somebody who is starting to go into voice lessons, or maybe they have a fear of doing that just from lack mindsets like, oh, I could never do something like that, or I wouldn't be good at that. What advice would you give them?
Well, I am a survivor of the great stage fright. I don't know, what do you call it? The stage fright club.
Hmm.
And I have a different spin on it. Usually, the thing that stops people is fear, and perfectionism and all the things. I'm going to look like an idiot. I'm not good enough. La la la. We all sound. I wrote a song called Brain Rats and it's just about all the same stuff that runs around in our head, and it all sounds
Yeah.
exactly the same. It's not that interesting once you start talking to other people. So so if and when that fear arises, I would reframe it to be, instead of, something terrible is going to happen to me, I've started calling it the onset of the sacred. Because for me to step outside my current story, I have to invite something that's beyond me, like the unseen world, the archetype, spirit, whatever you want to call it. And little ego me is trying to protect me. It's just doing its little job. It's like, no, 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 no. It's like a dog barking at the postal carrier. It doesn't know
Yeah.
it's okay. And so, and this happened to me. I was really feeling this kind of fluttering in my body. And I was like, I'm really not afraid. I wonder what's going on. And I thought, oh, it's that onset of the sacred. I am having to set aside little Barbara, little ego Barbara, in order for something greater to occur. And I think that happens with any learning, any new skill we do, any new transformative experience we have. There's that like, ah, oh God, I'm so scared. And then it's like, and I don't know if it's one of my mentors, Peter Block, says, I don't know if it's true, but it's useful to,
Hmm.
to think about. It's like, oh, here comes the onset of the sacred. The little me is having a little fit, and we're just going to put her in puppy school and say, sit and stay, and I love you, and I'll be back. So I would say that would be, just expect the discomfort and don't let it stop you.
Yeah, that is the greatest advice because honestly, the first step is just getting out of our own way. After
Exactly.
that, it's so much easier. So I love how you said expect the discomfort because with
Mm-hmm.
change, that is what comes with it is the discomfort. And a lot of times people get thrown off by it because it's uncomfortable, it's unfamiliar, but that's your biggest indicator that you're onto something new.
That's right.
So thank you so much, Barbara, for joining us today. I'll make sure to have her website in the description as well as her books if you guys want to go and check those out. And make sure, yeah, you go keep up with Barbara. And now more than ever is the time to tap into your voice and use it. Use it for good and use it for the things that make you who you are. And I will see you guys next week.